My name is Johanna Miller Lewis, and I am professor of history at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Today is August 31st, 2005, and I'm interviewing Gloria Ray Karlmark, a member of the Little Rock Nine. So we will start at the beginning, and I'll ask you where and when you were born.
I was born at 2111 Cross Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, on September 26, 1942, at 6 a.m. in the morning, by Julia Miller Ray. I was born by my mother.
Excellent. Tell me a little bit about what your neighborhood was like when you were growing up.
It was a very nice neighborhood for a child to grow up in. Across the street from us, there were 3 houses, a bishop's house, a teacher's house, and another lady's house, and lots of trees. There was a woody area there. As we as children played in those woods. On the back side of our block, there was an alley separating the streets. So the next street, I believe, was Ringo. And on that side, there were all white families. On Cross Street side of our block, they were all Negroes, and we were called Negroes in those days. We grew up there and played with each other and played in the woods with each other and played in each other's backyards. And yeah, we did the things children normally do.
Sure. Tell me about your family, your parents and your siblings.
Oh, I was privileged to have parents who were very well educated. My mother graduated from Tuskegee Institute with a degree in home economics. My mother was born 1900. My father was born 1889. He was the son of a former slave, and he went to Tuskegee, working the whole time, sending home money to his father to hire somebody to replace him on the farm in Missouri. My father milked Booker T. Washington's cow, and he became George Washington Carver's lab assistant. He was the only person George Washington Carver would allow into his laboratory. Yes. So in our home, we had busts of Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver. And our parents had a very conservative life. My father came to Arkansas to found the Arkansas Agricultural Extension Service for Negroes. He founded it and headed it for 40 years until he retired at the age of 65. My mother had worked also for the Arkansas Agricultural Extension Service for Negroes in Arkansas, yeah, as a home demonstration agent. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, the purpose of my father and mother both, they sought to educate rural black families, to help them get the most they could out of the little land they owned. And these were people, as I understand it, who were ignorant, who had no education, and the only thing they did have was a little piece of land. So that the men, they were called field agents. They taught the rural black community how to, rotate the crops and how to go about how to get the maximum yield from what you have available, how to animal husbandry, how you raise pigs and cows. And the women taught the demonstration agents, who were women, they taught the women how to make cheese from the milk and butter, and how to sew, and how to take the bags that you got the seeds in for sewing, how you could make clothes out of that cloth and whatnot. So their lives were dedicated to educating the black community and to honoring the members of the black community who had gone before us to make it possible for us to get education. So that's the kind of home I was in. We had my father. In those days, if you were a scholar, you had to learn Latin and Greek. So he knew that, and we had those books at home. And our bedtime reading material, my parents used to read to me when I was real little. They would read Homer and all that kind of thing. So that's the home I grew up in. A very proper home, I guess you would say.
And how many brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have an older sister, 7 years older, and a brother who's 5 years older. And my mother said that I've been stubborn from the get-go. So you see, you could say that I really wasn't supposed to be, but I hung on in there anyway. So that we were a family of 3.
And were there other family members or other relatives that lived near you in Little Rock?
No, not in Arkansas. My mother's family came out of Mississippi, Mount Bio, Mississippi, where her family more or less owned the land down there. Mm-hmm. Notably Fred Miller, he's also known as Mississippi Red. That's her line. My father's family came out of Bunston, Missouri. They were farmers and Indians. My grandmother was an American Osage Indian. And as I said, my grandfather fought in the Civil War and was a former slave. So, no relatives close by.
When you were growing up, do you remember what your aspirations or dreams were for the future? Sort of what you wanted to be?
I certainly do. I was going to be a nuclear physicist.
Well.
I was a dreamer. I have ideas. And I looked at TV and Space Gordon and all kinds of things. But I had a feeling that the key to you could be whatever you wanted to be if you just got the education, and that I got from my parents. They were very keen on you got to go for that education. Without it, no dreams are possible, really.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in a segregated society.
Well, I didn't realize I was growing up in a segregated society. I didn't know it was called that, so to speak, until, perhaps kind of late. I knew that there were different rules for me than there were for others, because my parents were always saying, be careful. I knew that when we drove down to Tuskegee, my brother and sister also went to Tuskegee, and I knew that when we drove through Mississippi, Alabama to get to Tuskegee, my parents were very strict on me. They would say, Gloria, quit smiling out that window. It was such an unnatural thing, but there was nowhere else was it forbidden for me to smile at the people in the car behind or something, but when we were traveling through Mississippi and Alabama, I wasn't allowed to do it. And I knew that at the Blast department store, there were water fountains for colored and for white. And I knew that when I went to the movie house, that we sat in the balcony. But, it's kind of, it just didn't, segregation was such a long word or whatever. It didn't register in my head that how the evil that it entails. I hadn't suffered. I wasn't aware that I was suffering from it at an early age. You do what your parents tell you to. I suspected something was pretty bad with it though when they lynched a man and hung him outside our church on 9th Street, the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. They're doing that kind of thing in Arkansas, and I knew that was bad, but I didn't really feel fear as a young child. I just followed the rules and stayed in my own neighborhood, and tried to, how children try to obey their parents, but they're sometimes tempted not to. And I remember I had a really very close call, I realize now, even more so than then, when I was on my way. On Saturday, kids always got $1 or something, you went to Main Street to spend it. And I would walk to Main Street from Cross Street downtown. And there was a white man parked in a car on the side of the road with the door open. And I came walking along there. I was really quite young then, let's say 8 years old or so. And the man said, "Come here, little girl." As an obedient child, on the one hand, I took a step closer to the open car door and the man who was sitting on the edge of the seat with his feet out on the ground. And then in the back of my head there was, my mother said, "Don't talk to strangers." And the man said, "Come here, touch this." And he had something, I didn't know what it was, and he wanted me to touch it. And my mother's voice, "Don't talk to strangers," came up. And so I thought, well, gee, now this is a white man, I'm supposed to do what he says. But my mother is saying, "Don't talk to strangers." So what I did was just to run away. And I realize now that, who knows, I might have been,
Yeah.
that could have been the end of me. But that's the kind of, that was the way it was back then. And otherwise, I didn't have any fear of the Lord. I liked to sit in the balcony, in fact.
You've mentioned that your parents especially placed a high value on education. Tell me what schools that you attended in Little Rock.
Oh, Gibbs Elementary School, yes. And I had a wonderful teacher there, Miss Lee. And Miss Lee insisted that you know your numbers and that you could spell, that you spoke the Queen's language, as it's called in some parts of the world, but that you spoke the English language properly. And she was an old lady, but she was a strict lady. That was at Gibbs High School, elementary school. And after that, I went to Dunbar Junior High School, and I graduated from Dunbar Junior High School. And after that, well, I should say in the spring of my last term at Dunbar Junior High School, a questionnaire was circulated that in the fall, Central High School would be open to all citizens of Little Rock, and if anyone in our class wanted to go there. And I signed my name on the list. I don't even remember what other names were on the list. But when I read that, it was great, because I knew about Central High. It had lots of equipment and things, and it was one of the United States 200 best schools. And that was really, you could get a lot of education there. They not that the teachers were better or anything, but they had more funds, more facilities, more resources, in addition to human resources. So I signed my name there, and graduated from Dunbar Junior High School. After that, the summer came, and in August, I happened to be at home, and my mother worked for Governor Faubus as a social worker, and I was at home alone, and the doorbell rang, and it was Ernest Green. He said, "Gloria," Ernest lived just around the corner from me. "Gloria, you signed up to go to Central, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, well, we can go and register today." So Ernie and I went to Central and registered. I just went on out and went on up and registered. Yeah, great. So from that moment, I'm going to Central. Great. And also, it was the first time I went in that school. It was an impressive school. I went into the registrar's office there. And I noticed that the lady was looking at us kind of funny. But I just assumed that she was just as happy as we were, that, you know, the school was open to everybody. So I was a little bit naive in those days. I didn't register things. I didn't see them in a wide enough context, perhaps. Yeah, and So I registered in August, and then when the first day of school came, I was all set to go to school. The night before the first day, though, when things started, that I noticed things started to happen. All of a sudden, I wasn't supposed to just go to school, but I was supposed to perhaps go to school together with some other kids who were going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know who these other kids were. I knew Ernest was going to go, and I think I knew Jeff was going to go. And a friend of mine, we were closest friends. She also lived around the corner. Jane Hill, she was going to go too. And but I didn't really know, you know. But that was different because normally first day of school you just start walking to school. Sure. And all of a sudden we weren't going to walk to school. We were going to get a ride and meet at a corner at a certain time. And that was when the first different thing happened. Leading up to that time, my mother had taken me to a dressmaker, and I had my, you know, I used to always get a new dress, first day of school dress, and you get some new shoes, and it's a really, it's something that if you like going to school, you look forward to. And I was an A student, so I loved going to school. I used to get $1 for every A I came home with too, so that helped motivate it. And $1 back in those days, you could do something with it. But I was really looking forward to it. And,
do you remember seeing Governor Faubus on the television?
Yeah. Later on, after that whole thing got started, then of course I saw Governor Faubus on television and a bunch of other people too. And that's really when I started thinking or opening my eyes and really understanding the implication of having of the department store having a fountain for blacks or Negroes and coloreds and one for whites and all the rest of the things. That it wasn't just it wasn't something to be taken lightly or accepted, or it was actually an insult because it just hadn't struck me that way. I had been taught to be very proud of my heritage, as you probably noticed. And it hadn't penetrated my brain that there were people who really considered me to be a lower form of life. And when she realized that, it's most insulting, really. Mm-hmm. And so it's a TV. I looked at TV. We had a TV then. Mm-hmm. I looked at it, and I saw Faubus there, and I saw the others there.
Was your family, or were you a member of the NAACP?
I wasn't a member. I was too silly. I wasn't aware. I don't even know if they have children who are members of the NAACP. I thought you would have to be a certain age at least. But I do believe my parents were, because my parents were very active in the black community. They were leaders. You know, it was my father, Mr. H.C. Ray. He was known all over the state, and people used to know, oh, that's Mr. Ray's daughter. So we were always told to behave because it reflected on our parents, that kind of a thing. So they were definitely leaders, and my father was a Mason. I'm told he had the highest ranking of the Masons in Little Rock. So I just assumed that they were members of the NAACP. And they had money, so they could afford to help others, you know, give to a nonprofit organization like that. So, but I personally wasn't politically aware, let alone active. Girl Scouts, I was a member of Girl Scouts. That's about the extent of it.
So, were you aware, you talked about the questionnaire coming around about Central, but were you aware of Brown v. Board before that? You would have been pretty young.
No, that was just, 3 years before. Yeah. I know that it was declared that there is no such thing as separate but equal. So I knew that had been decided on. That was great. But I hadn't really translated it into my life. I knew that something very good had happened. I also knew that there were, because of friends of my parents who had children who had fought in the Second World War, and they come home mutilated, missing body parts and things, and then they were not treated well. And it was, I heard about the contrast in how they were treated when they got back, that they had expected to be treated better because they had made their sacrifice. And so I was aware that there was this business of being unequal was a bad thing. Yeah. But that's about it. I didn't really think about those things. I played with dolls, and I had kind of Doris Day. My friends laugh at me when I say this, but it's true. I had my role model was Doris Day. You say Doris Day was never a nuclear physicist, but I always thought if she had wanted to be one, she would have been one. So that's the naivety that I happened to have as a 14-year-old in '57. Things were quite different then. We didn't have the knowledge coming in through the TV sets and whatnot that we have today. And I was really just embarrassing enough for me to say today. Yeah, that's the way I was. Unlike the other 9, they were pretty sophisticated, all of them, I think. I was the one who I tagged along with Ernest to register. Mm-hmm. And I went to first day of school, and first day of school opened my eyes. It burst my bubble, I usually say. That's when it became aware that the world open and available to Doris Day was that there were people who said, no way is that world going to be open and available to you. You have to know your place. And that I just could not accept. I hadn't been brought up to accept being less than equal. I had not been brought up to accept not being allowed to pursue education and the best education I could get. So that was when I had to do some major rethinking, I should say. And there's a picture taken by Will Counts of when the first day when we were stopped there, and the utter disbelief in my eyes. Of course, no one else can know what I was thinking, but I remember that, and I just remember that this cannot be happening. This can't be happening to Doris Day. This simply cannot. I could not understand it. This does not compute, I guess one would say today in the days of computers, but it was mind-boggling for me. And
so in the time that lapsed between that first day of trying to go to school on September 4th and then trying to go to school again on September 23rd, you said you did a lot of rethinking. What else did you do in those 3 weeks?
Yeah, rethinking, looking at the news, reading the newspapers, and just deciding what kind of life am I willing to live. And I place requirements on my life. There has to be a certain quality of life. And I decided that at my tender age that I couldn't find myself in the situation where I was a lesser creation of God than anybody else. And so for me, it was just obvious. If I had to die for something, I would die for being acknowledged as the person I am, as the human being I am, with the rights of all human beings. Yeah. So that for me, it was really a question of, well, there's enough of this nonsense. If this is the way people are in this town are thinking, they'll just have to get rid of me. I will try to go to get my education as long as I'm alive. And that's the least I can do. And if I don't succeed, then maybe my child will. But I really, when you're 14, you have all kinds of ideas about the future. One of them was that, for future generations, I really did think that it was time for somebody to put an end to this mess. And it was my, I don't know, it was my duty, I guess you could say. I believed that it was my calling to stand up for what I believe. I do not believe I'm a lesser creature of God. I believe I'm made in the image of God, in fact. So the choice was made. I can't accept the people who are arguing the opposite. My parents had talked about, and I knew about Gandhi and that nonviolence. And we were Christians. As I said, we belonged to the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And so I believed in nonviolence, and that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I thought, well, that's just, they can beat me up, they can hurt me and whatnot, but I will stand by what I feel is right. So the choice was made in my mind. My parents were very good. They said, when they found out I'd gotten myself into this mess, they said, well, now, what do you really want to do? My mother said, I don't want you to do it because it's dangerous. But if you decide to do it, I will back you 100%. My father said, I understand you want to do it, and I will back you 100%. They asked me to think about it, and I did, and I thought I have no choice. I mean, who would accept something, who would choose to be a lesser being? It's not logical, so I made my choice, and they, against all odds, supported me for it. And as I may have said earlier to someone, my mother lost her job because of that. She was a welfare worker. I had a degree in sociology and worked for the welfare department. They said to her that either she was to pull me out of Central High or she would lose her job. She refused to pull me out of Central High. She lost her job and was blacklisted for the whole state of Arkansas. She could not get work. A woman with 2 university degrees. My father they couldn't touch because he was so old. He had already gone into retirement. He had worked for the federal government in this Arkansas Agricultural Extension Service. So he had his retirement. Couldn't touch him, but they sure got my mother and forced her out of this for work. She had to leave the state of Arkansas. But they supported me. They said, if this is what you want to do, then we're behind you. And you can't really ask for more than that from your parents. It was wonderful. And they suffered. My father, he had heart trouble and was asthma and was old. And for him to see what was happening to us in that school, and for the things that at one point he would drive us to school, and they spit on his, on the windshield. I would have spit on him, I guess, if the wind had been down. And it really, an old person is easily insulted and offended, and they really got him. I was afraid he was going to have a heart attack driving us to school, whatnot. But that was the measure of his dedication to support me in what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So,
what was it like going to school at Central? Once the initial unpleasantness was over and you got into the school?
I was like Walking Dead. It was no life. You didn't meet in the school. We didn't meet each other. The rest of the 9, I saw a couple of us at lunch, and the rest of the time you were all by yourself, going to your different classes. I didn't share one class with another black person. People were afraid to talk to me. I showed you this letter. At one point I was kind of looking for that kind of contact, but to protect the ones who were nice to me in the classroom, I wrote this note asking, should I say good morning to you or hello when I see you or not? And when you get an answer back that please don't, I don't want to put my family in jeopardy from the White Citizens Council, then out of friendship you don't say hello or show signs of greeting and whatnot. You just walk as a dead man walking, so to speak, through the corridor to the first class or to the next class or to your locker. I developed some habits from that 1 year of going to Central High School that have stayed with me the rest of my life in terms of walking down corridors. I walk down a corridor and I see projectiles or the absence of projectiles. I don't see the faces that are approaching me or the faces that people are making at me as they're approaching. And sometimes I don't even hear what's being said. It's just like a robot. I know I have to get from this point to that point, and you try to do it as quickly as possible without reacting to what happens. If you get hit by something, if something is sprayed on you or spit on you, or you just try to go through it, get to your destination, goal-oriented, if you like, and do not give the perpetrators the satisfaction of responding or reacting to it. So that gives you kind of a dead face. It's like, as I said, walking dead in a way. There's nobody that you can smile at because it's dangerous for them. And the rest you really don't want to look at. So that's...
It doesn't sound like it was an environment particularly conducive to learning.
Well, they say stress is not good for you. And I think they're right about that. I haven't really wondered how much would I have learned if the rest of the environment hadn't been there. But for me, I liked studying, so when I was involved with my studying, then that was my world. And I guess so in a way, kids today look at TV to escape what's going on in the rest of the world. Well, I went into my books. But what was a bit aggravating is not all of the teachers were willing to treat you fairly as a student. So I had the impression that for some teachers, no matter what I did, they would at the most consent to giving me a C. Mm. Now, C's are, some people like C's, but I was an A student, so that, and I don't think I performed any worse at Central than I had performed the years before. But I had one teacher, Miss Marie Linderman. She signed my yearbook. And she was my teacher in algebra and trigonometry, and I loved math. So we would put our books in our lockers, and they would come and throw urine or feces or whatever in the locker, so your books would be destroyed. My math books I kept with me always. They never got those books, my math and my science books. But you can only carry so many books, so. But my math teacher, she was a young teacher. I don't think she'd been teaching many years. But she said that the first day in class to the whole group, she said, now there's a lot going on in this school, but I want you to know that when you're in this room, we're dealing with mathematics and trigonometry. And you can't ask for more from a teacher than that. I thought it was very professional. And I felt that, I didn't make only A's from her, but I felt that really, usually, or in every instance really, that what I got, it was pretty much what I worked for, and that's fine. I had other teachers, though, that just didn't like it. And a child knows when a child isn't wanted in a situation. And that was true in that school, too.
How did the administrators at Central handle the situation? Did you come into contact with them at all, or?
Yeah, Mrs. Huckabee. But we were a problem. So that, yeah, we were a problem to them. They never knew what was going to happen as long as we were in that school. And I really do feel that Elizabeth Huckabee, she did her best. And there was a principal, Matthew, I believe his name was.
Jess Matthews?
Yeah, that's right. I saw less of him, and it was usually in a very drastic occasion when I came into contact with him. But I definitely got the feeling that it was a bit of a, we were an unwanted problem. Mm-hmm. That due to their function they were obliged to deal with. So. But Mrs. Huckabee, I think she felt for us as a human being too. And she had empathy for us. But okay, she worked for the school and for the principal, so. But that's of the functionaries, I would say. I have a positive response to Elizabeth Huckabee, definitely.
How did going to Central and sort of becoming one of the 9, how did that change your life outside of school, in your neighborhood?
In that
church?
year, I had no life outside of school. It was too dangerous. I used to be carted off to Luxor, Arkansas, in the weekends for safety. One of the home demonstration agents, Miss Fannie Mae Boone, had a home up there. She was a widow. She had her home in Luxor. And she and I would drive off to Luxor every Friday afternoon after school. And I'd stay up there until Sunday. And that was for safety. Just like I have a sister and a brother, but the year 57, 58, they were not allowed to come home, not even for Christmas, because it was simply too dangerous in our home. There were threats by phone, by mail, all kinds of strange things. Talking about white powder, already back then they were sending white powder in envelopes to homes, and which we would have to give to the authorities, and they would. I don't know what it was or whatnot. We were told not to touch it and stuff. So it was simply dangerous. One night, this is a horrible thing. I think as a parent, it must have. I can't imagine what my parents felt. But one night, it was dark. The doorbell rang, and there were these two white men who were from the FBI, and they wanted Gloria Ray. They wanted to take her down to the office. And they told my parents, we want your daughter. We want to take her and get her fingerprints so we can identify her body when we find it. I mean, what a thing to say to somebody. Mm-hmm. So they had gotten some threats and things so that, they thought, well, best is that we can at least identify these kids. And so I was fingerprinted at the tender age. By then I was 15, because I had my birthday on the 26th, just a couple of days after that. But, yeah.
After the 57, 58 school year, what did you do that summer? Did you go to New York? I know
that
some people went to
well
New York.
Have been Camp Minnesink, yes. And that was an encampment for citizenship. I'd never even heard of such a thing. I'd always gone to Girl Scout camp in the Ozarks.
Of course.
Yeah. What was it called? Camp Ouachita or something? But that summer, out of the state, to Camp Minnesink in New York. And that was really eye-opener, because there I met kids from New York, too, and they had a completely different attitude towards things than, a country bumpkin, as they say, like I was. So that broadened my perspective too, just their experiences and the things they were accustomed to. I hadn't thought too much about the fact that the swimming pool was only open to blacks a certain time at the park, or you had to go to one on the other side. And to hear what they were doing in New York and how things are there, that in the same country is so widely different. But I really enjoyed that encampment for citizenship. That was rest and relaxation, yeah.
And so the next year, you couldn't go back to Central because,
No.
of course, Faubus closed the high schools in Little Rock. So where did you go to school? What happened?
And he had fired my mother
Mother.
and blacklisted her. So she and I went to Missouri. She had she wanted to work as a sociologist, but Missouri has a 6-month residency requirement for civil service jobs. So that she and I went to Kansas City. I lived with my uncle and my mother to gain residency. My mother, this woman with 2 university degrees, worked as a live-in maid for a wealthy family in Kansas City.
Mm.
She cleaned floors, scrubbed, cooked for 6 months. And then she applied for a job and got it as a parole officer. I went to and lived with my uncle, and there was a black high school just very close by down the street. It just happened to be black because the neighborhood was black. It wasn't a segregated school. Kansas City had just recently integrated its school. But because I was one of the Little Rock 9, it was thought that I mustn't go to the black school because they would say, Little Rock 9 member leaves integrated school to go to all black school. So I had to travel across town to go to the newly integrated Central High School of Kansas City. So I did, and that's where I graduated from. But it was a pleasure to go to Central High School, Kansas City. I came there and qualified for the honors program. And I had wonderful classmates in the honors program. We were all sort of like mine. We were really out to get a good education. And there were very interesting courses and whatnot. So that was a good time.
And when you graduated from high school, went on to college, was it easy or hard to make a decision of where to go?
Well, I had a very nice Mrs. Bowman, a chemistry teacher at Kansas City High School. And I was so inspired by her teaching and what we did in chemistry that I abandoned my wanting to be a nuclear physicist and decided I wanted to be a chemist. Not knowing really back in the early 60s that the field of chemistry wasn't really open to women. And certain types of chemistry you could do, but other types of the companies would say, well, we have very heavy glassware and that kind of stuff. They didn't really want women in there. But I chose chemistry as my major, and I therefore chose Illinois Institute of Technology as the school to go to. At that time, IIT was competing with Caltech for number 2 position. MIT was the best technical, and Caltech and IIT were competing for 2nd or 3rd place, if you like. So it was a good school I got in, and yeah. I jumped out of the skillet into the fire.
In a good way?
Huh?
In a good way?
Well, IIT was formerly known as Armour and Lewis Institute, 2 schools for men, and they combined. And they were not used to having female students. Our class, the class of 1960, we were the first class that admitted women and gave them a free choice of subjects. There had been women there before, a few, but they were only allowed to study food engineering. This is the 60s for you. So that's where I got confronted with discrimination as a woman for the first time. That's what I meant by out of the skillet into the fire. Yeah. So.
And how did it compare to Central, or can it be compared to Central?
Well, it could be compared to Central in one way in terms of the isolation. In the class of 1960, the freshman class, we were 2,000 students, of which 56 were women. So the school didn't have a regular dormitory. They put the few women that lived on campus into little apartments. That was one thing. The other, I had a roommate who said she'd never spoken to a Negro before. She'd seen them, but she hadn't really conversed with before. And this girl grew up in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We had teachers at that time who said to us that they did not appreciate having female students in the classroom because they could not use the language they were accustomed to. And there were little things like the building not even having a ladies' toilet in it. You would have to go down the street to a building over there where there was a ladies' toilet. So those kinds of things. Nobody hit me, and yeah, it was, you had a certain isolation. At that time too, there were four black male students in the freshman class. So we weren't very many blacks on that campus.
Mm-mm.
But it's a very good school and had some really prominent people in it, and you can get a very good education there. And in all fairness, it has changed dramatically since 1960, so
Good.
It's not like that now.
Let me just go back for a second and ask about Daisy Bates.
Yeah.
And her role. How did she somehow end up with having responsibility for you all? Or
You'd have to ask her or some of the older students. I really don't know. I didn't know Daisy Bates before. At some point we were supposed to go to her home, and I didn't know her or her home. I knew of L.C. Bates, so from the Arkansas State Defender.
Press.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the State Press. Yeah, there you go. But Daisy Bates I didn't know until then. She was not among my parents' social friends, if I put it that way.
Mm-hmm. If you could go back in time and change something about the 57, 58 year,
Yeah?
what would you change?
Yes. What would I change? Of course, it would have been an ordinary first day of school and everything went as usual. Of course. Although I don't really believe in that sort of thing. I usually say, if people say, would you ask me if I would change anything in my life? I would say no, because I don't know that I would be here today.
Yeah,
So that's the
absolutely.
real answer.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, without the school crisis, you wouldn't be where you are today. You wouldn't be the person that you are today. But how did the crisis affect your feeling or opinion of white people?
I love one white person in particular at the time. My mother. My mother was confused frequently for being white. So if you're talking about the color of the skin or the way you look, so what? I mean, some folks are white. It was the opposite. My mother was white, red-headed, light eyes. She had light brown eyes. My father was brown-skinned Indian looking, sort of. But he was out in the sun so much. He was mainly black, I guess you could say. Yeah. But I didn't have, in the Negro community at that time, you had so many people who looked like people who were labeled white. You had many people labeled black that looked like people labeled white. So I didn't really think about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have trouble even today with this white-black business. It's something, living in Europe, I noticed immediately when I've crossed the Atlantic, because the world becomes white-black. It used to be white Negro, and now it's white Afro-American or something like that. Or I get into discussion with my friend, I don't know what to call it anymore. And that's why I finally end up and said, well, at least I was born a Negro. So that part's clear. But I think you judge a person by what they do. And I can't take credit for what I look like, and I can't be blamed for it either. So,
Did your experiences at IT change sort of how you, I guess I'm wondering if your worldview, is it more influenced by either one of those educational experiences?
My worldview is highly influenced by IT, because that's where I first, apart from a Norwegian journalist that interviewed me in Little Rock, that's where I first came into contact with foreigners. At IIT, it was an accredited school, so they had to provide a social program for all their students. And there I was, not only female, but black and female. And there were a number of sororities on the campus, 2 sororities that had people at least on the campus. But my understanding is that they did not accept Negroes and Jews at the time. So in a way, IIT was in a dilemma. How are they going to reach the accreditation standards with me when there's no social organization on the campus that will accept someone like me? And then the solution came. We will put her in the social program for foreigners. So I, as an American citizen, had the social curriculum for foreigners. Now, how about that for an insult?
That's just bizarre.
It is bizarre, but yeah. What else were they going to do? Where else could they put me? But that introduced me to the rest of the world. I met people from 11 different nations, countries I barely knew where they were, on the globe. And all of a sudden there were people there. So that was really an eye-opener. And so I can definitely say that, yeah. And the people were so different. I'll never forget when I met a black woman from France. And I saw her and how she was relating and interacting with people in this group. And she was just perfectly at ease and being, however, natural and not at all cautious or, she had none of this sense of your place, so to speak, or a fear of your place, or a fear of how you will be received. She was just very open, and I was fascinated by that. And in talking with these people from these various nations, I realized that the people really did have quite a different attitude. That what I had experienced was really very much an American experience. So it helped me put it in perspective a little more. And so, yeah, it was eye-opening for me. Yeah.
Well, on this trip to Little Rock, you have come back for 2 important events. Yesterday morning, of course, they dedicated the statue of the 9 on the grounds of the state capitol, and then we have the first day cancellation for the civil rights stamp. You have any particular thoughts about this trip back to Little Rock versus some of the others?
It's been quite a different experience. I've made my family promise not to bury me in Little Rock. So that's pretty much the way I felt about Little Rock prior to the 30th of August. But I must say that yesterday's happening, it has really had an impact on me. And it's a mind-boggling experience, almost to the magnitude of that first day at school. I mean, I would never have been able to imagine or dream that one person could have a day like yesterday. It's incredible. And I see those, I was out at the statues this morning too, and I saw them, and it's almost like our little baby, so to speak. Yeah, it has really impacted me, and I think I may just have swung over to where I once again love Little Rock. I liked Little Rock before I went to Central. I didn't understand Little Rock after what happened there, but I think it's just wonderful what happened yesterday. You know, everybody can make mistakes, but it takes a much greater person or to acknowledge when a real mistake has been made, and an even greater person to be determined not to make the mistake again. As the governor said and any governor sitting in that office will look out and see that the monument, the testament, and it will be a reminder, and that it must never happen again. And I mean, when you hear things like that, I mean, you can't help but love Little Rock and Arkansas. So I think my heart is that, and I could even consider moving back to Little Rock at this point, which is something I thought, or if you'd asked me a year ago, even move back to Little Rock, live in Little Rock, don't think so. But yeah, I'm really touched and moved by it. I think all 9 of us are.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, it's fabulous. I look at it as a gift of God, in fact, because the whole Central High School thing, for me personally, has been a gift of God. God got me through that year, despite the attempts on my life. I went in and out of that school every day for a whole year. And I think that the Testament monument and the Little Rock 9 stamp, these are things that can only have been inspired by divine inspiration. So that
So better
I feel very humble and grateful. It's, yeah.
What's different about this trip than the 40th anniversary?
Oh, we're older, and we almost lost one of our members.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really very glad to be 9 again. We don't see each other very often, and
Right.
and I think this must be about the happiest reunion we've ever had. Absolutely.
Good.
One that we're all 9 still here, and we even had our parents. You know, we still have a few parents that are alive. Not mine, of course, but there were 3 parents at the ceremony, and I think that we're old enough now to rejoice for each new day that we get
Yeah.
to see, and it's also very what is it? We're very happy to see the new generation. It was beautiful to see the class of 2006 at Central. Oh, that was gorgeous. I have that in my mind. It's stamped on my mind. That was a dream, you know. The kids could go for it, get that education, and you would have, at a good school, you would have a diversity of students that are qualified to get in there and are doing it. And so that was just wonderful. And then we had, for the first time, I think, we had a grandchild of the 9, PJ. That was Ernest's grandbaby that was there. And we were thinking, looking at that little kid who's about this tall, and that kid will be able to go where his innate abilities will take him. There are not many doors still out there. There's some, but not many. And it feels wonderful to think that maybe this Little Rock business contributed a little bit towards those doors being open for him, for that generation. So that's, we have many reasons to rejoice and be glad today in this reunion of the 9. And we're just keeping our thumbs that all 9 of us will survive until the 50th.
The 50th.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, and we love each other, the 9. We have a bond. we would do anything for each other. If the nine, if it is said that the nine are going to reunite at a point, then when we're sure it's really going to be all nine of us, it sounds a bit funny, but if there's a possibility of it really being all nine of us, some of us are so important and busy that they have other appointments and things, you know, it's hard, they have hard schedules. But if it looks like there's a possibility that the nine of us can get together, then we do it. We do that. We have that commitment to each other. And it's like, I guess when every day for a year, if you've been confronting the same challenge, and you look to see at the end of the day, well, how many are still here? That it's something you do. It's you don't really think about it. I'm old, and it's not an easy thing to fly across the Atlantic. But I've said it, and the rest know it, that when it's a question of the nine getting together, all of us, then I'll make the trip. Good. So that, and I think the ones who on the West Coast who fly, and they have the same feeling. So we have that bond for life. Oh, we love each other. And we love each other's children too. It's a total bonding.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been enlightening, truly.
Okay. How long was this?